Hello, Uganda. Good evening and welcome to this edition of the Hotseat on 933 KFM. I welcome you, our listeners across this beautiful land, the Pearl of Africa. My name is Patrick Kamara. It's been 23 years since September 11 attacks on the United States by terror groups, mainly the Al-Qaeda. And it's been even more years since the attacks on Nairobi and Dar es Salaam, also suspected to have been carried out with Al-Qaeda. And for the last 23 years, a number of countries, including Uganda, we have suffered our own terror attacks, including the Chadondo rugby attack when we were watching, in 2010, when Ugandans were watching the finals of the World Cup in South Africa. But we continue as a country to see episodes of attacks, especially in western Uganda and areas of Kasese. So we'll be looking into the issue of terrorism and security, whether we can say this is behind us or maybe we still have to be on the lookout. Because we know developed nations, including the United States, have been issuing terror alerts or security alerts, telling their people to be careful as they move within the Pearl of Africa. That is going to be our focus this evening. And of course, we shall look into Uganda's economy and how it is performing. My guest this evening, who has just come straight from the United States, is Senior Presidential Advisor, Mr. Moses Yarhanga. We are happy to have you back. Welcome back. The last time we checked, you were somewhere in Indianapolis.
Thank you, Patrick, and our listeners out there. I'm happy to be back. Uganda is always, when you're outside there, the one thing I miss most, apart from my family, is the food.
If you have the money, you can access even the best food possible. The problem is we don't have the money. You get back on you resort on French fries.
I have not eaten French fries for over 15 years. I don't eat those fast foods.
Yeah, but if you have the money, I suppose, this is what I saw. If you have the money, you can also have some the good food, can't you? In America,
I cannot fail to get money to eat.
Yes,
and a relatively good meal.
Yes,
that one will be rest assured. But the food there is not like the food here. If you eat a pineapple outside Uganda, especially in Europe, it's not the same pineapple in Uganda. If you eat any fruit, it's not the same. So, in fact, one time I asked during the COVID era, 2000, I have a doctor friend of mine in Malaysia. I asked him, I said, I see a lot of Africans are resilient. COVID is not affecting them in the same way with people in Europe. And his answer was, he's a medical doctor who they specialize in herbal medicine. I said, the food you eat in Africa and Uganda and the Peninsula is organic. That makes a difference.
After all, we are what we eat, aren't we?
Yeah, so he said it's organic. And he gave an example. He said, the meat from your cows, and because your cows are doing open grazing, they move around eating. And by the time that cow gets to the full, it has eaten a lot of grass, which is, most of it is medicinal. It's ingesting in a lot of medicine in its body. And when you eat the meat or you drink the milk, you, the Kamara or the other, you ingest those nutrients, which are not the same nutrients you will find from the meat in Europe or elsewhere outside, which cows are feeding on grain every day. So that's what I mean. So it's not about how much it costs you. Mm-hmm. It's the quality and the type of food you have.
Yeah, I think again and again people have shown that we are what we eat. Okay, we are what we eat. Really, food is just, and I'm told actually the cost of the price of organic food in Europe is quite big. You have to pay a little more to get organic food.
And that one was if you are cooking for yourself, you have go and buy it in a supermarket or wherever it is. But if you're eating in a hotel, would you say I want organic? You take an example. You take an egg from a local chicken and an egg from these layers.
Oh, no, I don't want even to eat those layers, eggs from those layers. In fact, by the way, I hope I'm not sabotaging anybody's business. I just don't like chicken, especially that mzungu, that kind of, those kind of hybrid one. I don't want. Take away your chicken, let me eat something else, because the thing is just that's not even tasty. We have been joined by Professor Gerald Kareja from Uganda Management Institute. Thank you so much for joining us, Professor. Good evening.
Good evening. Pleasure to be here. Good evening, Patrick. Good evening, Moses, and welcome back.
Thank you.
I was asking Moses actually that he's just come back from the US, from across the Atlantic, and I was asking whether he said he was missing the food. I was like, how can you miss the food? I'm sure if you have the money, even in America, you can access the best of food, so long as you have the money. But if you don't, then you can resort to these hamburgers and French fries. And you were talking about the difference between...
I found him talking about organic eggs.
But we're happy to have you back. Professor Kareja, it has been 23 years since the terror attacks on the United States, Twin Towers coming down, and after that the world really changed. And it changed in a way, even security, changed in a way, even the judicial system, how they are even arresting people and prosecuting them. And even the terror attacks have continued. Uganda have suffered our own. You remember in 2010 when almost 70 people were killed at the rugby ground watching the World Cup finals in South Africa. And even episodes of attacks have continued in the Rwenzori, especially in Kasese. And we have had the United States, the UK issue alerts to their people whenever they are coming here. If you are to look at a security situation in Uganda, but also in the region, what would be your analysis?
My quick analysis would be that since the terror attack, the level of training, capacity and capability of our security forces was raised, and I believe also the intelligence services, because several times we've had terror alerts, and the alert period...
The alert alerts.
The alert alerts, and the alert period expires without a major incident, which maybe tells that then our security intelligence services
nipped in the bud.
Have been capable of managing the situation. Two, I think also it has improved and increased our presence in the region. My hunch is that part of being in Somalia and other places, CAR, DRC and so forth, is to contain the exposure of terrorists and the other marauding forces gaining access to Uganda, but also going to find them more at their source than to deal with them later as a symptom. But it has also stretched our resources. It has created also misinterpretation of our intentions, and maybe sometimes also created unease in regional cooperation and international relations. But on the whole, I think that the need for increased collaborative intelligence and security efforts in the region is greater than ever before. And I see that also the urgency of fast-tracking all efforts about the East African community to become a political or whatever federation is something that needs to be given more premium. But nevertheless, it has also given, to some extent, license and an excuse to some operations of the forces to be explained that way, when even sometimes it's just abuse of human rights and mismanagement. But I think in the whole, it has increased and improved our capabilities and made us more alert and more safe.
So the fight against terrorism also came with a burden of abusing human rights, sometimes
and also
some kind of overreach. But let me come back to you, Mr. Moses Byarhanga. I want your take on these constant alerts that sometimes the U.S. issues to the citizens of the Americans here. Somehow that comes and bites our economy, doesn't it? Especially in the tourism sector.
Well, everything has an opportunity cost. You see, by the time the US makes an alert, it's not just for the sake of it. Probably they have some information which you don't have. You know, the US as a government coordinates a lot of intelligence carries out around the world. So they alert the citizen, yes. But they don't only alert their citizens, they also alert us as the countrymen and women. But also, it's a deterrent to the would-be terrorists, because they know that they are known now. They are because when the alert comes out, probably they have gathered security information, intelligence information, and if you are the one who was planning something, and you see that alert, what message do you take? You continue? You think, I think I'm being monitored. So, to me, it's useful. The consequence, if the alert is not there and the action takes place, I think would be more costly than what you lose in terms of tourism because of the alert. So, and sometimes, as somebody was mentioning earlier, after some time, they remove it and say we are now clear. But they normally collaborate with the government agencies in respect to the intelligence information they have, and government agencies follow up to ensure that the alert is fully investigated. The source, most for them, they will say the moment they put up an alert, they have gathered some information. Most of it they share, and that helps the situation many times. So it's good. You may look at the current, you said it's costing us this, but if it costs you more in case a bomb explodes. But if they alert you that people are planning something and then you are security conscious, it's also, in fact, it's also we citizens, we should also be cautious, especially in public places where many people are. When that alert is out, everybody should also be on the alert. That the Americans are not only alerting the American citizens, they're also alerting Ugandan citizens, because they have capacity to just inform their citizens through mail, through other forms of communication. But the fact they make it public is that they're not only alerting their citizens, they're alerting everybody around them.
Professor.
But also on the question to ask Professor, you see, it is following the September 11 attacks in the US. Of course, the world security system or regime has changed. The checks and the counter checks at the airports in the world have changed. So there's more alertness in making sure that whoever is entering a plane, whoever is entering an airport is not harmful to society, because that's what happened that time. There was some laxity when what happened. But also, Gerard was talking about like our presence in Somalia and other places. You see, when the USA was following up the Al-Qaeda, they were basically taking advantage of stateless states, if I may use that terminology, where they can go and hide, do training, do planning, and do all sorts of things. Now, Somalia was bound to be that. So the presence of African forces, not only Ugandan, African forces in Somalia, is to create a state within the state, so that the people who would want to use Somalia to go and do terrorist training, to go and make attacks around the world, have no space.
Okay. Mr. Moses Biarhang and Professor Gerard Karija, we're going to take a mega milk break, and the Hotseat will be right back.
The hottest debate.
Welcome back to 933 KFM, and this is the Hotseat. My name is Patrick Amara. My guest tonight, I have Professor Gerard Karija from Uganda Management Institute and Mr. Moses Biarhanga, Senior Presidential Advisor. And we're looking at 23 years since the terror attacks on the United States and how that has impacted on the world, but also Uganda in particular. And we have had our episodes of attacks in Kampala and Western Uganda. But Professor Gerard Karija, can we say now that, that people are conscious, people are alert? Have we changed our behavior? Has that changed us totally in terms of how we look at security? Because I can still see, in some cases, people going to public places with less, scrutiny. Yeah,
And I'm wondering, in general terms, I think that the level of cautiousness has gone up. but also the majority of us citizens, I think we need constant reminders. And even just signposts. I've gone to places where they say, if you see something suspicious like at the airport, please report. Don't leave your bag unattended. You go to a church, they tell you, manage your bags well, and people here can do anything. If something is not clear, report it. So I think we should increase those simple signages as reminders. 2, I think we should routinize security alert, security consciousness in places where people frequently gather. For example, like places of worship. Once in a while, when administrative announcements are being made, so many people are going to get married. Next week we have a fellowship. Then you can also add issues of a security nature. Then in places like schools, especially like schools when they have school assemblies and so forth, it should be made kind of routinized so that our civic consciousness on security issues remains high up there. And also we know that the armed forces have civilian force liaison officers and so forth. They can also increase on their messages of awareness and alertness, and also to encourage us to remember that we are part of the security apparatus of our communities and of the nation. So I think that, yes, our consciousness is a little stepped up. A number of places which never used to have security personnel, now it is the order of the day. One time somebody asked me that, I've come to visit you at UMI, at every corner I see a policeman, a security officer. People is this a garrison? Is it because you're a public office? And I said, but wait a minute. We're one of those people that have been empowering governments around the region, and some of these people are not happy about it. 2, we're a public facility, and when we get advice from government on how to manage our security, we take it seriously, and so on and so forth. So I think even both public and private organizations and entities, it's important to step up our security system. I've seen in neighborhoods like homes, people now have cameras, they have WhatsApp groups to alert each other in that particular community. And but also at the same time, these terrorist activities, when something is done and is successful somewhere, it emboldens those who have such intentions also to attempt or copy or imitate. So it's not, we shouldn't be so naive and complacent. I think it is good to be as suspicious as we can. We would rather have a bomb scare
than the bomb itself.
Mr.
Moses Biaranga, how do you analyze our alertness and our consciousness, and has it really changed how we look into security issues from the civilian perspective? At least I've seen in the church where I go to, you'll not enter the church on Sunday unless you have to go through a metal detector, or there's going to be a metal detector pass on your body search and all that kind of stuff. And that I think was new. And so many, in your own perspective, what else has changed since the terror attacks came?
Well, as Jad was saying, and you yourself, that the example you have given is it has happened to many organizations. Many churches do security checks as you enter, so it's important. Many people are more conscious today. Even when sometimes even weddings, some people put on at a reception, they put some security checks. Of course, the technology, some of these we may not see, technology has also changed in terms of investment in technology. But the consciousness, people are now more alert in general. If somebody came and left a bag nearby, and then you see somebody, and you see the next, you say, oh, who is this bag? Why is someone leaving a bag? Definitely, you'll be alerted. So within the civilian population, I think they are more alert than ever before. But also within the security agencies, I was talking earlier that, you see, the challenge we still have in Africa is having states which are not in charge. You see, in political science, a state is a territory which has a supervision which is in charge of the entire geography of that country, of that area.
The territorial integrity.
So that's what you have. Sovereignty, yes, but integrity, see, are two different, essentially. Because if to say you are a state, you must be able to take control of the security,
the people and their property in a given geographical area. Yes.
Yeah, now, for instance, we have been having ADF in Congo, in DRC. Congo, DRC, not the other one. We have been sometimes there's a time when LRA went up to Central African Republic, having moved away from South Sudan. They had used South Sudan as their territory to come and attack, because the government of Sudan then was not in charge of the entire territory of Sudan to stop the Konyi group from operating from the area. You have had similar cases in Congo, in DRC. The government in Kinshasa is not in charge of all the geography of Congo to stop ADF from using their land to come and attack Uganda. So that cause you had talked about our going out, it is intended to create security in Uganda. Some people misunderstood it. But if Congo, DRC doesn't have enough capacity to take charge of its territory, and somebody else is using their territory as a free land, no man's land, to come and then launch attacks on Uganda, then Uganda is forced to negotiate with Congo and say, if you can't do it, let's do it for you, because they said to us more than they said to you. But at the same time, they have been said to Congo. So if then you have now the Congo, you have DRC, you have South Sudan, you have Central African Republic, you have many other states in Western Africa which are not fully in charge of their own countries, or their own territorial areas. Now, it's a good thing through collaboration with the USA, with some Western powers in the Western world, they share a lot of information. They're also concerned because, like now, the situation in South Sudan, the President Museveni and even African Union has been trying to bring harmony between the warring parties so that you have one government where all people are represented, either through election or otherwise, so that government should be in charge of the territory of South Sudan, so that nobody can use it either to attack Uganda or to attack other places in the world. Because the Al-Qaeda was believed at that time to be working from other states where they would be training and so on and so forth, and through that they would go and attack other places. Of course, the other thing which has changed is so now we need a collaboration as Africa to ensure that all our countries, the states, the armies, the police in those countries are able to take charge of the territorial integrity of those countries, whether with the help of fellow African countries or Western world. It is in the interest of the international world to be secure, because you don't know who will attack who, where they will come from.
Okay, gentlemen, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to look into when countries maybe try to offer security help to a country that is in need. For example, Somalia or even Afghanistan. Sometimes, it has taken almost 20 years. They're trying to build an army, national army, a sovereign army for Somalia, but looks like it is not taking root, and it's unable probably to stand on their own. When America was in Afghanistan for 20 years and they left, immediately the Taliban took over, and it's as if the Americans were not even there. We'll be right back.
KFM's Hot.
Welcome back to 933 KFM, and this is the Hot Seat. My name is Patrick Amara. My guest this evening, Professor Gerard Karija from Uganda Management Institute, and Mr. Moses Biarhanga, Senior Presidential Advisor. It's 23 years since the September 11th attacks today, and we're looking into the security situation in our region. For example, African countries, Uganda is particularly, really sacrificed a lot by sending Ugandan troops for peacekeeping in Somalia. The first time they went there, they almost landing amidst bullets, and they were able to hold their ground, expand the places of control, maybe chase out the Al-Shabaab militants from Mogadishu, and other African countries later joined them. But almost 20 years security-wise.
Yeah, I'm an optimist. I believe that they have opportunity to build their capacity and capability, but it won't happen very soon and very quickly. EMI was one of those who went into Somalia in 2017. I remember I led that delegation.
Yes.
To train the top civil servants then. We were moving in Mambas.
In battle wagons.
And for those who have gone there later, the situation has improved drastically. The capacity and capability of the Somali army was almost, people were just being recruited, but through training, financing, and military equipping, I think their capacity and capability has grown a little bit better and stronger. Look at our own country. I remember there's a time when the national budget was cut almost by half, especially when we still had the war in the north. You imagine now like the situation we're in, and they say that everybody bring half, we put it into the military operations. But now, we're struggling with things other than the labor Moses was trying to give us about the state being able to regulate society and population within a given territory. So the state capability of some of those, Somalia, Southern Sudan, and others, will take some time. But among other things, it is more of a Somali-led initiative. There must be deliberate sacrifices. There must be deliberate political settlements and maneuvers to ensure that that is done. One way is also to borrow from Uganda. We can have a number of criticism against President Yoweri Museveni and NRM for that matter. But one of the political settlements was seeing the cost of war and pursuing engagement, encouraging those who are fighting militarily to join, to be absorbed, and for those who have political skills and capabilities also to be given political responsibilities. And if you notice, some of them are even still a constant. Ugandans may disagree, or certain sections of Uganda may disagree why certain people should be in cabinet or not. But all those were political settlements. And part of the dividends was reduction in war. So I think that it is an experiment that has worked in as far as building state capability, having people who are fighting absorbed in the army and regularized. So I think that a lot can be learned from us. And maybe they have done that, but they need to do more. Two, there is a cultural issue or challenge within Somalia and also the setup. So there is no one fit all measure. So I think there needs to be a continued understanding of the social structure setup in Somalia and the extent to which that can be harnessed to strengthen the state. But I also believe that it is the duty of all of us at least now, I mean people within the region, to give a hand to the weaker ones and pull them. Because when there is a point of weakness, it won't make us stronger, those who are not being directly affected. Instead, it spills back to us.
Okay, let me come to you, Mr. Moses Biarhanga. When the UPDF deployed in Somalia as a peacekeeping force, at your own level, senior presidential advisor, did you envision that the UPDF was going to be in Somalia almost 20 years later? or by being there this long means perhaps it has been such a difficult mission to handle. No wonder we're calculating 2 decades almost there.
Yeah, but well, nobody would imagine how long it would take. By the way, it is not about Uganda. It's the African Union.
Yes.
It's UN. That's why the mission is funded internationally. So, in fact, our soldiers in Somalia are catered for by the international fund, not necessarily the Ugandan budget. So it's an international effort. Nobody anticipated how long it would take. And it would be suicidal to say we are just going away and then you have a reverse. So what is crucial, like Jad was saying, is for those states, as I said earlier, to create the capacity to take charge of their own affairs. As you know, we have been training some of the Somali forces here in Uganda and training within Somalia. If they can build a strong military force capable of defending Somalia, both internally and externally, against any external aggression, build not only the capacity in terms of human resource, but also equipment to be able to galvanize, to have enough personnel well equipped to guard their country, but also the issue of ideology, to know that we are one Somalia, not different clans. But that's still the challenge. You belong to this one, you go to the other one, that is from the other one. So if they see themselves as Somalis, to take charge of their country, the same is happening in South Sudan. They are South Sudanese, but they see themselves as Dinka, as Inua, as this. So if you are Inua, you are an enemy to a Dinka. These are South Sudanese, the Africans. It's been looking at each other in that way. If they did it, and that's what here in Uganda it was easier to remember the first things NRM dealt with was anti-sectarianism law, to say we are all Ugandans, we should behave as such. The army was given each district a quota to when there is recruitment. The recruitment is nobody can say the army, we are not there. Everybody is there. And within the army you teach it, the patriotism, to love their country, to look at themselves as the army for Uganda, not an army for your tribe. That has worked well in galvanizing, so that the soldier will look at self, this security for Uganda. I'm not securing my brother and sister because we're the same clan or tribe. I'm securing Ugandans wherever I am. So if most of the African countries with these challenges can take a lesson from Ugandan experience, build a strong army without tribal or religious or clan differences, Africa will be free.
Okay, Professor Karija, I think maybe the Ugandan military or the UPDF has benefited from the element of combat readiness, because you take each battle group. Now I think there are over 20-something battle groups that have been taken.
Almost everybody has been.
Almost everybody now. Almost everybody has been to Somalia, and that helps in trying to keep the national army combat ready.
Yes, and also to some extent, it has, to some of the people I've talked to, beyond that, they feel that it is exposure to other settings. So in addition to combat readiness, there are also diplomatic skills that have been benefited, and also there's some financial
gains for individual soldiers.
Gains for individual soldiers, which a number of them have appreciated. Once in a while there are some questions and issues, but overall, many UPDF soldiers would wish to have that tour of duty. And
in fact, some people, I'm told, actually even the president was complained about it. There was an abuse of somehow where people were trying to corrupt themselves into being taken for military duty or service in Somalia.
And actually, the last time I checked the statistics, I think Uganda was the third globally in terms of having soldiers in external peace operations next to Nepal and Bangladesh. So I think also at an international level, we are known to support peace and military operations outside our own territory.
Gentlemen, we're going to take a mega milk break and the hot seat will be right back.
KFM's Hot Seat. It's hot, it's live, provocative, and digs deep into the issues.
Welcome back to 933 KFM, and this is the Hot Seat. My name is Patrick Amar. My guests tonight, Professor Gerard Karija and Mr. Moses Byarhanga, Senior Presidential Advisor. But let's look into something. I think it is very difficult, Mr. Byarhanga, to really deal a decisive blow to terrorist organizations or terror cells or whatever they are. Because sometimes, even when you think you are peaceful and everything is okay, something ugly happens, as if they're always like terror cells in Kampala, hiding, hibernating, just waiting to strike at any moment. We've seen those episodes happen and Ugandans die, like what happened on Buganda Road, what happened on Parliamentary Avenue. Those things keep coming. So you can never be sure, because you can try to defend a country all the time. For them to make news, they only need to be successful only once in 10 years.
Yeah, but see, even when they have happened, unfortunately, they get followed up, because the action you take makes it easy for you to be followed up. That's why now the investments in the security cameras around, they help a lot. If an incident happens in the city center, one can put two together and see who did what and try to follow up. And sometimes they have been able to be arrested, those who did that. But also the security, the financial system. We are asking about things which have changed. The financial system the world over has changed. We have the anti-money laundering law. Almost every country now has it. In fact, before it was passed, it became a very big condition of the World Bank and other financial institutions to say we must all have shared vision. How do you follow money? Today, if your account received money, they don't expect Kamara to receive. The bank will alert that, well, Kamara has received so much money. And maybe Kamara will be asked and said, Kamara, this money is coming from where? Because the terror groups would train you from different parts of the world. Those who fund them would pass money. So money is followed, this money is for what? Kamara, you're receiving money. Who is paying you? For what your service have you carried out? So those details have made it not easy, even for those intended to do bad to operate. So that even when they do operate, they get easily followed up and they're monitored. So yes, they can once in a while strike, but they also know that it's not as easy as it used to be in the past, because the world is collaborating. Because now, like on money laundering, the international community, led by the US, monitors the movements of money around the world. So if they are seeing money going where, they get suspicious and then it will be followed.
Professor, what's your own assessment? Because in the region where we are, sometimes we are surrounded by chaotic situations. For example, South Sudan, of course, further field. You have Somalia, now even Sudan, and you have the Congo. But the Congo is closer to us because Congo has multiple, negative forces in eastern part of Congo, which is bordering Uganda. And yet we had the United Nations peacekeeping force with a lot of money that is being pumped there for 20 years. And yet you cannot, over 20 years, I'm told over $1 billion a month or thereabout to cater for them. And you don't see the dividends in terms of a secure Eastern Congo for all these years. And you wonder what they were doing.
Yeah, in May I was attending the Security Symposium in Kigali. And one of the debates was the role of the international peacekeeping forces. And I think their conceptualization of their role is limited. And sometimes we expect them to do much, but for them they know that their mandate is just peacekeeping and not
how do you keep fighting when the peace is not there?
Fighting wars. So they have boundaries on how they do their work. But going back to the question of terrorism and how it can be extinguished, of course there are those already known groups that are being pursued or have been pursued. But also one wants to believe that there are still those who will think that they can use terrorism to cause disruption politically and maybe even cause regime change. And one of the enablers is technology. There is a lot of work on the internet that people find comfort in. I've been seeing documentaries of, for example, Australians and the UK young people who would end up going to Afghanistan, to these other places.
When they've been recruited online.
Who have been recruited online. So I think that is another point of insecurity or that grooms terrorism. Two, a number of people who get into terrorism have an agenda, a rallying agenda. Sometimes it's political, sometimes it is covered in spiritual extremism and so forth. So I think another way of tackling this is trying to minimize or disrupt issues of extremism, issues of the abuse and disuse of the internet, questions of political extremism as well, and also to be alert as citizens when we see people behave or disappear. This wasn't terrorism, but when we were in high school, a number of our colleagues, we didn't know they were training to go back to Rwanda while students. So when we would go for holiday, they would go for military camps. And sometimes even they would disappear, they claim they are forensic. So they told us later when they joined the war and now they are on the other side, they are soldiers, and they were like, oh, remember the other time when we would disappear? So I think that among the things that can raise our consciousness is for security experts.
The same thing happened to us. We woke up one morning, and the entire house in St. Leo's College, Chegobe, that had almost 90% the Rwandan students of Rwandan origin, had all disappeared
without the knowledge of anyone else.
And the whole house was empty. But that was a different mission altogether for them.
Yeah, but assuming it was
determination or something like that.
Yes, but also some people can be mobilized that they are going for self-determination. So the point here is that such situations, we should be enabled for those of us who have security ignorance. So, but to uplift our level of awareness.
Moses, sometimes people are radicalized because when they feel excluded politically, when they feel maybe they're not partaking of the national cake. The other day we saw young ladies who are stripping naked and doing all this kind of stuff because so they feel there's abuse, graft, and all that kind of things. And these are kind of things that perhaps can make somebody become very radical. Are we safe? And that's going to be a concluding remark as well.
I don't think so, because if you look at the terror attacks and those, especially in the Western world, and the people who get arrested or killed, it's not that they are underprivileged. It's not. Most of it is religious extremism. And it has nothing to do with the way of life. Some we find have been having jobs. They leave a paying job and go to train. So we wouldn't say that is being underprivileged or being being economically excluded. No, it's not. It's a different kind of story. But my concluding marker is that we need to be more security conscious as citizens. The security forces do their job. In many cases, if they are alerted by for instance, if people are training in a camp near your farm or within your farm, and you see people you don't normally see in the area. It's good to alert security because for them they try to follow up who are these people. You are seeing and you are reporting they are not known in the area. That's why the idea of a person coming, even a worker at a farm or another place, it has to be reported to the LOC system so that people know that at Kamara's farm or home, there are two new people who have come from another place. They are working there. So when we see them in the trading center, we shouldn't think that who are they? We know they are coming from here. They are working at Kamara's farm. So it's important, especially in villages, people to be always cautious. In towns as well, to people you don't normally see you in the area, and then you start seeing them, you might ask yourself. It's good to know who is this person. In fact, in most of the Western world, what they call community, people know each other. We here we are used to
some kind of neighborhood watch.
Neighborhood watch. Yeah, they know each other. They know who is in the next two houses, who is next in the other one, who is the other one. The surrounding within like say 500 meters. The person would know who stays where. But here you go and you look yourself, barricade yourself in a fence. You don't know your neighbor, the neighbor doesn't know you. So I don't know who are the people in my neighbor's house. So even when you find them along the street entering, you may think these people are waiting for you while they are just next to their house.
All right.
So we need to know each other much more. That helps the security. Because security starts with you.
All right, Professor, very briefly, a parting shot.
Let's be our brother's keeper and also look at points of vulnerability and work on them.
Professor Jared Karija from Uganda Management Institute, thank you so much. Mr. Moses Biarhanga, Senior Presidential Advisor, thank you. And most of all, you, the listener, I want to thank you for the privilege of your company. Good night and God bless Uganda.